Okay. Awesome. So I want to welcome Jason Wong to the podcast. He's been on before, and last time we talked about how he made this product called Holy Meme Bible of all the famous memes in the past, and now he's the founder of Doelashes, which is like a lash company. And he also recently, started teaching at Shopify, and he's coming out with this course on, building e-commerce brands. So, yeah, welcome, Jason. I want to kind of have you share a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got into e-commerce and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. We haven't talked in like 2, 3 years. There's a lot to catch
Yeah.
up on.
Yeah.
Even the intros are completely different now. So over the past 2 years, I started building this EDC eye brand, and the main focus was creating really comfortable eye products. Our first product was our false lashes. We were able to grow 1,000% year over year in 2020. And so it's been a very fast growing trajectory. And so I started teaching on the side on teaching people my framework to build brands like this. I teach at Shopify. And then today, actually in 1 hour, I'm launching my e-commerce masterclass that tells you how to build brands. But I'm really excited to come onto this show to really talk about not about the course or like what I do, but really what I'm observing in this current industry, like in the space, building a brand 2021. It's drastically different than anything else before.
Yeah, I mean, the first, like, what can you tell people about like the first brand that you've built and like how many? Because I know you've had like several stores, right? Several stores. Yeah.
Yeah, built a number of brands over the years. Handle a lot of like celebrity stores too. But my first store was called Trendy Co, and it was a t-shirt brand. It was the simplest e-commerce store you can ever build. It's a t-shirt brand. Everyone knows they want to start a t-shirt brand. That was me when I was 14. And that did pretty well. It was profitable. I did a lot of influencer marketing there because I didn't know how to do any paid ads. And I transitioned to start the Holy Meme Bible. So 100K the first week. Did 5 versions of that. Launched a meme board game, a candle line, and etc. So that's like what happened in the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, and how old were you when that happened?
Oh, I started when I was like 14, 15, like a baby.
So 14, 15, how did you learn how to do all the coding? How did you learn how to do all of that? Yeah. I mean, not the coding,
Shopify,
but yeah.
yeah. Thankfully, Shopify didn't require too much coding. I didn't know a little bit of HTML just being on this in the internet for a little bit. But Shopify, for the most part, was very drag and drop. So I was very thankful that it didn't require too much coding. In terms of learning how to do e-commerce, I will have to admit, looking back, I made a lot of mistakes. For example, small stuff like not knowing what a SKU and a barcode is, not even using that at all, and just kind of like determining what different products are by looking at it. Whereas in reality, every product is scannable by a barcode. That's how people know different products have different barcodes. I didn't know that. So I just make everything the same. So like small mistakes like that to like larger mistakes like hiring people the wrong way, doing marketing wrong. And so looking back, I wouldn't say I did e-commerce perfectly, but that was over like 8 years of trial and error that really took me here.
So that's crazy. So like in the course you're coming out with, that's like 8 years of your experience in one course kind of thing. Is it just you teaching, or is it other people?
Yeah, it's me. I brought on my friend Nick Shackelford, Chase Dimon. These are like big players in the advertising space. And then I also interview 60 different experts and in interview formats just like this. I interview 60 of these experts.
I think there's a little little yeah, I
Oh, there's
think
a little
yeah.
lag.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
You could go. Yeah.
I'll run
So
it back. I'll run it back. So I filmed 60 interviews with all these experts, CEOs, CMOs, and all these accountants to ask them very specific questions regarding and come together with like 180 videos in one single class.
180, wow, nice. Yeah, I guess, for a lot of people, who are probably listening, they're probably like, yeah, Jason, like, that's great. You could do it just because you're smart. You're, yeah, you knew, you hustled, but like, can you take us, yeah, kind of back to how did you do it when you had no connections, no network? Like, how did you just, yeah, what was your way of doing it? And also, what is it like building a brand, 3 years ago, like you said, or a few years ago versus building a brand in 2021?
Yeah, the really core reason of why I built that class is to demonstrate that you could do it without a lot of money and network. I've taught this $5 million brand building framework for a few years now, and the idea is that I built Doelashes with $500, and so that really defeats the whole idea that you need a lot of money to start a business. Is that you really don't. Like we're in a time where you can start businesses and test ideas without investing a lot more money into it than compared to 10, 20 years ago. So that's right off the bat. Like I want to like put out that misconception that you could do it without the connection, without the money, because there's so much free resources online now. You can meet any people that you want online if you are able to connect with them through messaging. You can test ideas that of products that never got created by photoshopping a picture of what it looks like and selling it on Kickstarter. Like there's so many ways for you to start businesses without knowing people and having money that is only available in recent years. But what changed over the past 3 years in the DTC space or e-commerce space in general is that it's harder to acquire a customer more than ever. 5, 6 years ago, you can toss up a Facebook ads with the most random picture and you can get people to buy your product. It's the dumbest looking creative. The ad doesn't make sense, but it'll sell because it wasn't that too competitive. But then over the years, there's obviously a lot more competition with more merchants coming to the space, which is great for the industry as a whole. But it's been challenging for a lot of operators and founders because the cost of acquiring a customer has triple, quadruple. So costing, like if your margins were great back then, it might not be as great now. So there's actually a new tactic to go about building an e-commerce store now, is that instead of focusing on getting people to purchase right off the bat, your main objective is to collect as much first party data as possible. So like 3 years ago, your main objective is I'm gonna try to sell this product from seeing the ad to selling the product immediately. Ad product. But now the step is actually is ad, getting them to give you their information, and then selling them on later channels. Later channels as in SMS, email, you get them to their address book or whatever. So sending them to taking surveys, pop-up lead gen forms, instead of sending them directly to the product page. That has been like the shift in how we've been operating, because it's a lot cheaper to acquire these customers if your only objective is to get them to give you an email address. So once they give you your email address, you can email them to market to them, or you can get their phone number and text them to market to them, rather than trying to spend absurd amount of money acquiring them from Facebook. So that's really been like the tactic that's changed recently.
Yeah, and I guess e-commerce is so saturated now. I feel like how do you stand out? Because there's a bunch, like for you too, right? Like you're doing eyelash brand. There's a lot of probably eyelash. I don't know how many there are, but there are probably a lot more competition than there was 3 years ago, right? So
a ton.
Yeah. So like, how do you stand out and survive in this?
Three things: community, product, and branding. That's really how we were able to stand out in a very saturated space. Coming into the lash circle, we were one of the newest comers, the smallest player in a space of titans, like titans who are in Sephora, they're in Target, they're in Walmart. You can walk into a Walgreens next to your house and find lashes there. So how do you compete against people like that? Well,
Yeah.
Titan brands like that, their only weaknesses is that they don't have a community. Like no one is ever excited about a drugstore brand. Like you don't go into CVS and be like, I love that brand so much, I'm gonna come to put time and get it. But that's really where the power of DTC brand comes into place. Like because we have that control over the entire experience, from them seeing the ad to them getting a text message to getting an email, and also the entire experience within the website, we can build that connection and that emotional attachment with our consumer and build that community so that they're a part of our brand. Like think of the brands that you're very passionate about, like this the brand of the shoes that you wear all the time because you're like, I feel what this brand is trying to do. If it's Nikes, you like what they're doing with athletes. If you're working with like Puma, you like what they're doing with like, runners. So like these brands were able to build communities of people that love their products and talk about it and attach to it. So they don't go out and find cheaper options or something else because they're so attached to it. So we built that community very well early on social media. The second thing was product. If you make a bad product, people don't come back. In DTC space right now, because the cost of advertising is so high that sometimes you don't make money on the first sale, but you'll make money on the second sale. So it's crucial that you get people to come back and buy again because you might see the first sale as like a hopefully days later to make another purchase to generate that profit for you.
Mm-hmm. It was a little.
Oh, I think we froze for a bit.
Yeah, I think so.
Where did I cut off?
No, so it's like connection isn't stable, and I don't know. It's a little different, but so you said that you started off with $500 when you first started your e-commerce brand. So that's the journey.
Yeah.
And then now obviously you have a lot more resources, but say there's someone out there who wants to start it now, like would that be possible for them to do that? Because what you did was you started with that and then you reached out to influencers to kind of help you promote the product, right? But was it like, were they doing an affiliate deal? Were you paying them? Like
No pay at all.
So they would just want the free product and they just promote your brand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a product. But when you ask like, can someone start that today? Absolutely. Is it more challenging? Yes. But can they start with that budget? Yes, they can. But the reason why we're able to do it with such low budget is because I learned all those skill sets to do it without hiring people. When you look
at
it
like, yourself, right?
Like when you look at like a business expense, they have payroll, right? They need to hire a marketer, they need to hire customer support, they hire operations manager, they hire all these people. But in the beginning, I did all those roles. I was literally doing every single component of it. So that's how I was able to save money. And the $500 just went towards buying the inventory because I wasn't making the lashes in my living room. I had to pay someone to do that. But anything that I could actually do, like run my ads, shoot my own pictures, write my own copy, send my own email, I could do that. And that's how I was able to save money there.
Yeah, so you're doing it, so you were very hands-on and you were like doing everything that's involved in the project, right?
You have to. I think every founder needs to go through that, every single one of them.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, tell us about, I guess, so 2021 versus 3 years ago, the couple of differences. You said, like, what do people need to be successful now? You mentioned community, which is huge, like the user experience, right? Like how they feel buying you. So like for your lash company, how do you make them feel? Like how do you tailor that and create that for people?
Create the branding experience?
Yeah, because like you said, like, it's different from buying lashes from like Walgreens, right? And they're like, okay, this is just another brand, but there's no like emotional attachment to it. So how do you create that emotional connection to the brand? And is it just by using influencers? Like sometimes, when influencers promote a certain thing, now you see it a lot in crypto, or other stuff. They promote that and people go and follow it. But how do you create that loyalty to that brand? And if you're using different influencers all the time, then it's kind of hard to create that loyalty, right? Because it's like everyone's, but it's worked out, right? Like certain brands, like you see, what are those big, like Fashion Nova, or like, you see these big brands, they're just paying any influencer. But it kind of works, but I don't know how much the loyalty and stuff is there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really comes down to the branding that you interface with your clients. So what people actually see, that is the mailer box that people receive, the email copy that you send out, the ad creative, the copy that you use in the ad. Really, like every single touch point that you see with your customer can be customized, and that is all opportunities for you to really stand out for your customer and become memorable. Like when you look back at the brands that you purchased from a lot, it's memorable because you remember their name, you remember their logo, you remember what they stand for, you remember their tone, maybe they have a personality that you really like. And so like building that relationship with these customers early on through all these touch points, even like how the website looks like what's the website experience very nice? looking back at like an Apple website, scrolling to buying something on an Apple website, it's like very memorable, right? Because like all these 3D animations that they do, that's part of their branding. Like they give you that whole visual experience that you can't get anywhere else. Can we replicate this on our own website? Maybe in a smaller scale, yes. But that is just like an example of an opportunity that you can do, or take advantage of to really stand out to your customers, to make yourself top of mind constantly.
Mhm. So like for Doelashes, what are some of the things that you do? I mean, you don't have to share everything, but like, how do you, you could have like a personal message, I guess, in there, and be like, welcome to Doelashes. Like I was consulting for this one company, and they were like, hey, like, should we have like a message in our products where it says like, hey, thanks, tag us on your stories on Instagram, post us for like 50% off, right? Something like that. And I think it comes down to growth hacking, right? You're technically a growth hacker for like e-commerce brands. I growth hack, social media pages and stuff. So it's about like being smart and like not having to use a lot of funds and just like getting it through word of mouth. And so like Dropbox, you look at Dropbox, you look at Gmail, that's how they grew and exploded. They just did like a referral type of program. So do you have anything like that in place for your brand, or, things that you've noticed really work well?
Yeah, we have an ambassador programs that I think a lot of brands have already. But what's different about ours is that we host them on Discord. So we have a private Discord server just
Oh,
for
wow.
our brand ambassadors. So like you imagine like a circle of your biggest fans, your VIP customers who are constantly talking about your product and like going out there and going out to bat for you. Like we built that Discord server to be very exclusive.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so like anyone that we found to be suitable, we moved them over to Discord. So it became,
Okay.
or like, are you in that Discord? So in that Discord, we give them like early access deals. We give them discounts. They get sometimes free samples from like our newest releases. So like a whole
Okay.
different experience of building communities on there.
Oh, wow. So these are just for the people who are super loyal, the ones who are like always active, right? Something like that.
Mhm.
Okay. That's really smart. Because then you're making them feel special, make them
Mhm.
feel like a part of the
Oh yeah.
brand. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So with Shopify, so how did you get in touch with Shopify? Did they like reach out to you, or did you did they notice you were like one of the top, like stores or something? And
I mean,
you
we're
know,
definitely not the top store. They just love that I have a good audience of business owners online, and they found that there's opportunities for me to teach. And I love teaching too. Like I love going to shows like this to talk about our insights. So they reach out to me to see if I want to teach a course on supply chain logistics, and that's really what we were going over.
okay, supply chain logistics. Um, Interesting. How do you see I don't know if you've heard of like VeChain. VeChain's like a supply chain
Mhm.
cryptocurrency. How do you
Yeah.
see crypto playing into, I mean, I heard, you might even be paying for things on Shopify with crypto now.
Oh yeah, we
Um,
accept Bitcoin actually.
all you do for
Yeah.
the product, yeah. So how do you see that changing, like VeChain, for example, or like other cryptos changing the game for e-commerce? How do you see that?
Mm, I think in terms of crypto and e-commerce, we will start seeing more mass adoption of spending crypto for e-commerce, but probably not during the bull market. It's way too volatile for both ends to feel safe.
Mhm.
I mean, we do accept it anyways because I'm very bullish on the coin in general. So I'm in it for the long game for either, but I think for a consumer, seeing an asset that will depreciate 30-40% immediately
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of hard to swallow, right? Like imagine if you bought a Tesla for 60K 3 months ago. Well, that's rough.
yeah.
So I think like we're gonna see more crypto in e-commerce soon, but not like as fast as we think it will. Like it will come, but
Mhm.
it will need to stabilize a little bit more.
Yeah. um, I think now too, with like people selling physical goods, there's more of a transition now into like digital goods. You know what I mean? Like with NFTs, for example. So I feel like more and more physical products will become like digital, and we'll just be using it online. Do you
Yeah.
have any? I mean, like, you're selling physical eyelashes now. Maybe in the metaverse, people will be selling digital, like, eyelashes. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like kind of I don't know what your thoughts are on that with
I'm very bullish on the VR and on NFTs. I think we're still very early on it, and there's still a lot of uncertainties. Like 10 years ago, people weren't sure about Bitcoin, like a digital currency. Why would anyone do that?
yeah.
But there's definitely merit to it.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, you're
obviously,
back.
huh?
Hmm.
I think there's like feedback. Yeah, I don't know what it
Oh
is.
no, you get
Huh? Is it? Yeah, I think I'll probably have to edit it for sure. But um, yeah, I mean, so what like, what are your goals of what you want to do, where you want to be, and kind of like when you first started, I guess at 14, 15, and you wanted to start a store. Why was it? Because you're like other people are starting it, and you're like, I want to learn it and make money. And what did your parents say? I guess I mean at 14, 15, you don't have to like go to school or college, right? And kind of what was that like? Like, were your parents like? When did your store take off? And then, did you go to college? Did your parents say, "Hey, like, you got to stop doing this online stuff," or did they believe you after you saw the
I
revenue?
mean, I didn't really ask them for permission. I just went out and did it. And the reason why I did it was because it was my only way out. We didn't really grow up with money. So it's either you go to college for 4 years, get a degree, work a job until you're 60, or you give this whole online business a try and hopefully they'll buy you freedom out of that whole cycle. And so
Yeah,
for me, I never really wanted to do the 9 to 5 cycle. I mean, it's perfectly fine for other people, but for me, I couldn't. I can't stay in place and to do that. Um, so that's what I want to do is that I want to get out of it, and e-commerce was like my ticket out of
hmm,
the cycle that I was gonna get into. And then at 14, 15, that was the perfect age to do it because there's no liabilities. I don't have mortgage, I don't have
yeah.
a payment,
You
no
have
wife.
kids. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if there's any time
yeah,
to like mess up, it's now, right?
yeah. I think that's easy for you to say at 14, 15. Most 14, 15-year-old kids are playing Minecraft or like Pokemon. Or, I don't know. They're not thinking about making money, and so I
Mhm.
mean, there's a lot of people in their 20s. Like, I'm 29 now. Like in their late 20s, early 30s. Like, they're wanting to do something different, but they just feel stuck, or they just feel like kind of you found your way through e-commerce and took a chance on that. But a lot of people are just searching of like, what can I do? So what would you say to those people? And like, yeah, like, what can they do to find their way? You know?
Only get into e-commerce if it's something that you're passionate about. Don't do it because you want money. I think chasing money in e-commerce will be the number one way for you to fail because you'll burn out. Um, things will not always go right. You'll actually lose money.
Hmm.
Are you back? I think I cut out for a bit.
Yeah,
Did I
yeah.
cut out? Did I cut out for you?
Yeah, a little bit, but it
Okay,
was
I can
it was
re-answer
okay.
that.
Okay.
I'll re-answer that. But my advice to like people trying to get into e-commerce is that don't do it because you want to make money. Do it because you're actually passionate about it. There has to be underlying intrinsic motivation for you to do this. There will be times when you lose money. There will be times when everything will go wrong. Anything that could go wrong will always go wrong, and in some cases, and you need to be prepared for that because if you're only in it for the money, you will burn out very quickly.
Hmm.
You will give up, you will flop, and you're like, why did I ever get into this? So there needs to be this underlying passion of yours to really want to do something in the space outside of the money. Like the immediate reward will not be there, but if you hold on long enough, it'll always come back to you. um, and watch a lot of free resources online to get basic understanding. I teach and I have a class, but I will say like even before you take my class, you should always like watch the free resources, see if it's the right thing for you before you invest any money into programs and stuff.
Hmm. And I think you said you learned a lot online for free, right? And that's how you got started, essentially, right? Just
Yeah,
YouTube.
well, I watched stuff online. I just did it. I just started a store and went for it.
Yeah, that's That's really impressive. I think a lot of people might be like, "Hey, like, that's great, you did it, Jason," but I don't think I could ever do that. And I think a lot of this comes down to like believing in yourself. And I think a lot of people, you know, don't have that either because they weren't fed with those types of messages growing up, or they just never found that they never tried because they're afraid to fail. So I mean, even for what you're doing now, it's not like you haven't failed. So I mean, is there anything you could shed light on like what were some of the biggest struggles you had, and did you ever feel like giving up, and like how do you handle those times for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Giving up, there's been many encounters of that. When you run out of money, when you run out of motivation, when you burn out from work. I'll say the biggest tip I can give you is to take care of yourself. This is not gonna like make you money immediately, but it'll make you money in the long run. Is if you take care of your mental health, being very careful of like what you put your energy towards, being able to prioritize your time and give your time and energy to the things that actually matter. And that's like one underlying thing that if done properly and if I did it earlier would have mitigated a lot of the problems I had. So it's not a
Yeah.
particular failure or problem or advice. It's that this is one thing that you should always do if you want to get into this business.
Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned like mental health. I think that's like a huge topic right now. Like what are some ways you take care of your mental health? And I've talked to people, and they said I just grinded like for hours each day, and part of them doesn't regret it because that's like why they're at where they are now. But like, what would you say to those who are like trying to balance work and mental health and all of that? Like, is there like a routine you follow? Is there like a strategy you've learned that helps you kind of balance work versus like your personal mental health and your own personal time? I think
Yeah, I
yeah.
set like a routine. Like I go out and gym in the morning. I like to cook at home sometimes. I'll go to my favorite places. Just really like if you're gonna have the freedom as an entrepreneur, spend that freedom doing things that makes you happy, so that the work that you do at home and or at the office is all worth it. Because really being an entrepreneur means that you're getting the freedom, right? But freedom doesn't always means that it doesn't mean what it seems like on the surface. Um, and that is just really about doing what you want to do at your own accord.
Mm-hmm. um I don't know why there's keep on like things I don't know what's going on, but
You should use this new tool called Riverside.
what is
It
it?
will never like this thing will not Riverside.
Riverside or Riverside?
Riverside.fm. It records the audio and video on the person's local hard drives, and then at the end it'll upload it together to the cloud. So even if it lags for you, it won't lag at the recording.
Oh, okay. Riverside.fm, you said?
Yeah,
So it's like it's just a way to record stuff instead of like Zoom, you mean?
yeah, it's a podcast studio.
It's a podcast studio. It's like a studio. Okay.
Yeah, it's like a live studio. It's a cloud studio. It's just like this, except the audio and the video is recorded separately, and then
Oh.
you just put it together in post.
Oh, okay. So they made this so that you wouldn't have to have lags, I guess, on
You will
the.
never have lags again.
Okay. Oh wow. Thank you. We should have known this before. But that's cool. Yeah. So I mean, you've met a lot of entrepreneurs. Like you've been connected with a lot of influencers. Um, what are some things that you've seen that I mean, you mentioned it before, like it has to be more than just for money, like passion. But and I guess the desire to have freedom, right? I think one of the biggest reasons you became an entrepreneur, and myself is for freedom because you don't want to just be tied to one place and just work for money essentially, right?
Mhm.
Just to live. And you want to make an impact. I believe every entrepreneur wants to make an impact in the world. That's why they chose to leave that route because they felt like they could do more with their life. And so What are some of the traits, I guess, you've seen in successful entrepreneurs versus those who, I guess, I mean, it's not bad to be in it for the money. I think everyone we all need money to live.
Yeah.
But like you said, there needs to be more. So like, are those traits that people are born with, or are those things that you kind of develop over time? Because I think, becoming an entrepreneur has become like popular nowadays through like people like Gary Vee and like, Grant Cardone and these other big people online, and it makes it like glamorous. But then, it wasn't that popular, and most entrepreneurs, like, that's like their title if they're broke and trying to do something, like trying to do a startup. And so, it's definitely not easy, and it's a way different mindset because you're not conditioned to get a paycheck every 2 weeks, right? It's not like, and it is a conditioning, I think, just like how school conditions us to, I heard this before, like, how school, there's like a bell ring, why do where else do you hear bells ringing, and it's in factories, and so if you think about it, the person who made the school system, I heard, was I don't know if it was Rockefeller, but basically like the people who are making, employees to work in their factories, right? And so, whether you think about it or not, you're constantly being conditioned, whether it's through, school, media, but there's no, like, as an entrepreneur, the only conditioning you get is self conditioning. Like for you, like no one taught you how to do all these things. You just kind of had to learn it yourself by doing it, right?
Mhm.
And that can be scary because first, there's no safety net. There's no guarantee like, hey, like you're gonna be getting this paycheck in 2 weeks. It's like, hey, like I've gone 3 months and I haven't made any sales. Like, what am I doing? And those are the moments when you're like, man, like, should I really just go back to getting a job? And you know what I mean? So like, do you want to talk about those moments? Like, have you had moments when like there was months where you had no sales and like you're just thinking of like doing another thing, or how do you
I mean,
overcome
the
that?
beginning is always rough, right? Like there's this learning curve for anything. You're not gonna start a store today and make money tomorrow. And
Yeah.
so being able to tough out those moments, and those moments will drag on for months at a time, will happen. And that's why like the intrinsic motivation to want to do this needs to be there. I think persistency as a characteristic is very important for any founders. Like persistence to push through the bullshit, to push through the hardship is really important. um, and just overall you need to want to see the bigger picture. Like if, like just like buying crypto right now, like obviously when people look at these dips, they're like, well, is it even worth it to like be in crypto anymore? Well, for me, I've been in crypto since 2017. I've been through the crash, I've been through multiple dips, and I bought a 50, I bought a 60, and I bought a 30, I bought a 20, I bought a 10, you know? And
Mhm.
so because for me, the long-term crypto is a lot bigger than whatever we're at right now, that I'm willing to invest money into this regardless. And
Mhm.
so the same thing applies for e-commerce, so that you need to see the bigger picture. Like, what are you really working towards? Are you looking for an exit? Are you looking for a buyout, or are you looking to get into retailers and then pass this business on to your kids? Like, understand what your goals are, and then set that as like the North Star to guide you through everything that you do.
Mhm. um so would you say like have like your values in place, and like your, you mentioned having a North Star, and what would that be for you, I guess, and how would people go about finding that for themselves, especially when, most of the time they're just like, hey, like I just need to make money now. Like a lot of people are in like survival mindset where it's like, man, I need to make money now, versus like an abundance mindset where like there's a lot, going around, and it's I guess. So yeah, that's one question, and I guess my second question is like, when did you switch from survival mindset to like abundance mindset, and how can people do that even if they feel like they needed to survive, because those are very two different mindset states, and it's sometimes hard to go from one to the other, you know what I mean? And so yeah, how would you go about answering that?
I think everyone will always be in a survival mindset. because there's always goals that you set for yourself that's always higher and higher. And for you to get to that goal, you need to survive where you're at right now, because your expenses will grow. You'll hire more people. You'll have larger overheads. Um, and so you're always in the survival mode. I think even billionaires are in survival modes because they need to circumvent and overcome challenges that they face in any stages. So there's levels to this. Like I don't think survival is only for people at like the absolute bottom. There's people trying to survive doing $5 million a year. Believe it or not, there are 10 million,
Yeah.
40 million.
So
So it's just perspective, right? I think we're almost always going to be in a survival mindset, but that's really what pushes us to be greater, right? Is that
yeah.
is fear of failing.
Fear of failing. Okay. Um, okay. And before, so where can people find more about you and I guess what you're doing in your course and all of that?
Yeah, so
Any
I'm on Instagram as PUG. I am launching my e-commerce masterclass today. You can find that on this website, bbclass.co, bbclass.co. It's called Building Blocks, so the two abbreviations is BB. And yeah, go on, sign up. It is truly the most comprehensive class on e-commerce, and it's an accumulation of all the stuff that I've learned in the past 8 years, coupled with a bunch of experts that I interview in the space that I think you'll find a lot of value from.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, how long is the course? Is it like several hours long or?
180 videos. Each video is like 6 to 20 minutes long, so maybe like you'll finish in like a week or two if you only watch that. But most people stretch that out to like a month.
A month. Okay. And before we hop off, do you have any last words to like those looking to grow, like aspiring entrepreneurs, or those looking to start their own business or something like that? Do you have any?
Yeah, absolutely. One big tip is to find your why. Your why is the underlying reason for why you do anything. You know, if you're an athlete, your why is that you want to be the greatest. If you're an entrepreneur, your why is that you want to provide a safety net to your family, or maybe give yourself the financial freedom, or do any of these things. So like understanding your why and sticking to that will be the number one thing that will get you through any hardship that you'll face.
Knowing your why. Okay. And what would be your why if you don't mind sharing, or do you want to share that?
Yeah, my why is that I want to be the first in my family to be able to single-handedly support the family. Like my family didn't come from wealthy backgrounds. They're all employees, and I want to be the first person to really bring them out of that cycle. Let my parents retire early. Let my kids have a stress-free life. Like really avoid the stuff that I had to go through. I think I'm able to provide that.
That's so funny because like I mean there's people who are like 20 like 29 40, they're like, dude, what do you mean, like you sound like 2-3 times your age, and
I do get that a lot.
yeah, so but that's good, it's an advanced mindset. And yeah, any so if there was like a book or resource you would have people check out as well, what would that book be? Like a book or some sort of like YouTube video or something like that, or speaker? Yeah.
There's a book called Selling Naked called by the founder of Hubble's Contacts. So they're like an $80 million contact lens brand. The
Okay.
book is called Selling Naked, and it walks you through like his philosophy of building a brand. Great book. But otherwise, like a bunch of resources on Shopify Compass. Shopify Compass is Shopify's own free course, absolutely free. I teach there too. So you can
Okay.
to start completely free, like nothing they ask you for. A lot of great resources for you to get started off Shopify Compass. I'll recommend you go to those two resources first.
Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah. Thank you, Jason, for sharing. And
Of course.
everyone can check him out on Instagram at Pug, and then get connected to him there.
All righty.
All
Thanks
right.
so much.